The biggest mistake a person can make is believing a uniform gives them the right to decide who deserves respect. The afternoon sun hung low over Highway 47, painting the rows of gas pumps in warm shades of gold, while the steady rumble of pickup trucks and family SUVs blended into the quiet rhythm of another ordinary day in rural Georgia. Travelers filled their tanks before the long drive home. Children reached for cold drinks inside the convenience store, and the scent of fresh coffee drifted through the open entrance as if nothing remarkable could possibly happen there. Then everything changed the moment a white patrol cruiser rolled into the parking lot. Officer Bradley Turner stepped out with the confidence of someone who believed the badge on his chest settled every argument before it even began. His eyes swept across the station until they landed on a black woman standing beside a dark blue SUV parked near Pump 4. She wore a simple navy windbreaker, faded jeans, comfortable sneakers, and a baseball cap that shaded most of her face. Nothing about her appearance suggested wealth, influence, or political power. She looked like any other traveler taking a brief break before continuing down the interstate. She calmly returned the gas nozzle to its holder, checked the receipt in her hand, and reached for the driver's door. Bradley narrowed his eyes as he noticed the official state license plate mounted on the SUV. Instead of curiosity, suspicion filled his expression. He crossed the pavement with quick, deliberate steps until he stopped only a few feet away. "Hold it!" he called in a sharp voice that caused nearby conversations to fade into silence. The woman slowly turned toward him, meeting his gaze with remarkable composure. "Is there a problem, officer?" she asked politely. Bradley ignored the question. His attention remained fixed on the government plate. "Whose vehicle is this?" he demanded. "It's assigned to me," she answered evenly. "I'd be happy to explain if you need identification." But Bradley had already made up his mind. He folded his arms and let out a dry laugh that several people near the convenience store could clearly hear. "Funny how people always have a story," he muttered. A middle-aged couple loading groceries into their sedan exchanged uncertain glances. A truck driver paused while tightening his fuel cap. A teenage cashier standing behind the front window instinctively looked toward the parking lot. Something about the exchange felt wrong before anyone even understood why. The woman never raised her voice. She simply reached toward her pocket with slow, careful movements. Bradley immediately lifted one hand. "Don't," he ordered. "Keep your hands where I can see them." She stopped without complaint, maintaining steady eye contact. "Officer, I was only reaching for my identification." "You can do that when I tell you," he replied. The confidence in his voice left no room for discussion. Around them, cell phones quietly appeared in curious hands. "No shouting. No panique." Just dozens of silent eyes watching an ordinary afternoon transform into something unforgettable. The woman took a slow breath before speaking again. "I assure you this situation can be cleared up very quickly." Bradley shook his head. "That's what everyone says." Without waiting for another explanation, he instructed her to step away from the SUV. She complied with calm dignity, showing none of the fear or anger many expected. Yet somewhere beyond the gas station, several black SUVs had already changed direction after receiving an urgent call over encrypted radio channels, and although no one standing beneath the bright afternoon sky could possibly know it, the next few minutes were about to redefine every assumption Officer Bradley Turner had made the moment he decided that the woman before him did not belong. Bradley Turner took another slow step forward, leaving almost no space between himself and the woman standing beside the dark blue sport utility vehicle. The afternoon breeze carried the distant sound of 18-wheelers rolling along the interstate, but inside the gas station parking lot the atmosphere had become strangely quiet. Even people who had no idea what was happening sensed that something important was unfolding. The woman remained composed, her shoulders relaxed and her expression steady. She looked directly at the officer without showing fear or resentment, only the quiet confidence of someone who understood that panic rarely solved anything. "Officer," she said gently, "my identification is in my jacket pocket. If you tell me how you would like me to retrieve it, I will gladly cooperate." Bradley barely acknowledged her words. His attention remained fixed on the government license plate behind her. In his mind, the explanation was already settled. He believed she had no legitimate reason to be driving an official state vehicle without an escort or visible credentials. "Step away from the driver's side door," he ordered. She nodded once and complied immediately, taking 3 slow steps exactly as instructed. Her calmness seemed to frustrate him even more. He expected arguments. He expected excuses. Instead, he found someone who refused to match his rising intensity. Several customers quietly gathered near the entrance of the convenience store. A retired Army veteran filling his pickup truck frowned as he watched from across the parking lot. A young mother holding her son's hand whispered that they should stay back. The cashier inside noticed more people looking through the windows than standing in line to pay. One of the fuel delivery drivers reached into his shirt pocket and quietly activated the camera on his phone without saying a word. The woman glanced briefly toward the growing crowd before returning her attention to Bradley. "May I ask why you believe I have done something wrong?" she asked. "Because nothing about this adds up," Bradley answered. "Government vehicle. No security detail. Casual clothes. You expect me to believe that is normal?" She gave a small, respectful nod. "Appearances can be misleading." Bradley folded his arms. "Not today." He reached for his portable radio and quietly requested another unit to respond as a precaution. The dispatcher acknowledged the request with a calm voice that echoed through the speaker before fading into static. The woman listened without interruption. She neither protested nor attempted to leave. Her patience surprised several people watching nearby. It was the patience of someone who had spent years working under pressure, someone who understood that character often revealed itself most clearly during uncomfortable moments. A gray-haired man standing beside the ice freezer finally spoke, not to the officer, but to the woman. "Ma'am, do you need someone to call anybody?" She offered him a grateful smile. "Thank you, sir. Help is already on the way." The words sounded simple, almost ordinary, yet they carried a quiet certainty that few people noticed. Bradley certainly did not. He interpreted them as empty confidence. "That is fine," he replied. "Whoever you think is coming can sort this out later." He removed a pair of handcuffs from his duty belt and held them where everyone could see. Gasps spread softly through the crowd, followed by uneasy silence. The woman looked at the handcuffs, then back into Bradley's eyes. Her voice remained calm, almost compassionate. "Officer Turner, I hope before this day ends, you remember that every decision made in public becomes part of a much larger story." For the first time, Bradley hesitated for a fraction of a second, not because he doubted himself, but because her confidence refused to disappear. Far beyond the next highway exit, however, a convoy of black sport utility vehicles moved steadily toward the gas station with flashing emergency lights still switched off, while inside the lead vehicle a senior commander reviewed a message containing only 6 words that instantly changed the priority of every mile ahead. "Locate Governor Monica Brooks immediately." Monica Brooks stood quietly beneath the bright afternoon sky, her hands resting naturally at her sides as she watched Officer Bradley Turner study her with growing certainty that he had uncovered something suspicious. The small crowd continued to expand, drawn not by loud voices but by the unusual stillness that had settled over the gas station. Most people expected arguments when an encounter like this unfolded. Instead, they found a woman whose calm presence seemed almost impossible to shake. She looked toward the family standing near the convenience store entrance and offered the children a reassuring smile before returning her attention to the officer. It was a simple gesture, yet it reflected the same quiet discipline that had guided her throughout a lifetime of public service. Long before she became governor of Georgia, Monica had learned that true leadership was measured by how a person responded when respect was missing rather than when applause was abundant. She had grown up in a modest neighborhood where her parents reminded her every morning that dignity could never be handed to someone by a title, because it had to come from within. Those lessons stayed with her through law school, years as a prosecutor, service in the state legislature, and eventually the governor's office. Even after winning the highest elected position in the state, she refused to surround herself with unnecessary ceremony whenever she believed ordinary citizens deserved to be heard without warning or preparation. That belief explained why she had left the Capitol that morning wearing simple clothes instead of business attire. She had chosen to travel without a public motorcade because the purpose of the day was never publicity. She wanted to experience public spaces exactly as any resident would. Over the past several months, she had quietly visited schools, hospitals, diners, truck stops, and small businesses across Georgia without advance notice. Every conversation revealed something that official reports often missed. She believed government worked best when leaders listened before they spoke. Only a handful of trusted people knew her schedule that day, including her chief of staff and the commander responsible for executive protection. They respected her decision but insisted on one condition. If anything unexpected happened, they would immediately move to her location. Monica had accepted that compromise without argument. Standing beside the fuel pump now, she remembered the commander's final words before she left the capital. "Governor, we trust your judgment, but if you call, we move." She had quietly sent that signal only moments earlier through a secure emergency feature built into the state-issued phone resting inside her jacket pocket. No dramatic message. No emotion el pli. Just a silent location alert transmitted directly to the Executive Protection Center. Somewhere inside the state operations headquarters, multiple computer screens had instantly changed color. Experienced officers who had spent years protecting governors recognized the alert immediately. There was no confusion, only disciplined coordination. Vehicles were dispatched. Supervisors were notified. Routes were calculated. Meanwhile, the people gathered around Pump 4 remained completely unaware that every passing second was bringing an entirely different reality closer to the quiet little gas station. Monica looked back at Bradley, whose confidence seemed to grow with every moment that passed without contradiction. She almost felt sympathy for him because she knew he still believed he was controlling the situation. In truth, the story had already moved beyond either of them, and the next chapter would not be written by assumptions but by facts. Officer Bradley Turner looked around the parking lot, as though the growing crowd somehow confirmed every conclusion he had already reached. To him, the silence of the bystanders was not uncertainty. It was agreement. He convinced himself that he was protecting public property, enforcing the law, and exposing someone who believed she could avoid accountability. Monica Brooks, however, remained exactly where he had instructed her to stand. The afternoon breeze lifted a few loose strands of hair beneath her baseball cap, but nothing disturbed the calm expression on her face. She neither argued nor pleaded. She simply waited, understanding that patience often revealed more about a person than words ever could. Bradley took another careful look at the state vehicle before circling toward the driver's side. "Stay right there," he instructed without looking back. "Do not move unless I tell you." "I understand," Monica answered quietly. He tried the door handle, found it locked, and turned back toward her. "Keys." Monica reached slowly into the pocket of her windbreaker and produced the key fob exactly as instructed before extending it toward him. "Thank you for cooperating," she said. Bradley accepted the keys without responding. He unlocked the vehicle and began looking through the interior. Everything appeared unusually organized. A neatly folded state highway map rested on the passenger seat beside a legal notebook filled with handwritten observations. A reusable coffee cup sat inside the center console. A small overnight bag rested behind the driver's seat. There were no expensive accessories, no unnecessary displays of status, and nothing that matched the image Bradley had already formed in his mind. He opened the glove compartment and found registration documents issued by the state of Georgia. He glanced over the paperwork but dismissed it almost immediately, convinced that official-looking documents could be misleading. "Interesting," he muttered to himself. "Very interesting." Outside the vehicle, Monica continued standing quietly beneath the watchful eyes of strangers. A young college student who had been filling his sedan finally stepped forward a few feet before stopping at a respectful distance. "Officer," he asked carefully, "has she refused to cooperate at all?" Bradley answered without hesitation. "This is an active investigation. Please stay back." The student nodded politely and retreated, although his puzzled expression remained. Monica looked toward him and simply smiled as if reassuring him that there was no need to become involved. That calmness only deepened the uneasiness spreading across the parking lot. A retired schoolteacher standing near the entrance whispered to another customer, "She has not raised her voice once." The other woman quietly replied, "Sometimes the calmest person in the room knows something the rest of us do not." Bradley closed the glove compartment and continued inspecting the vehicle. His portable radio crackled with an update that another local deputy was still several minutes away. He acknowledged the message before returning his attention to Monica. Until I know exactly who you are, he declared firmly enough for everyone nearby to hear. I am going to place you in temporary restraints while I complete my investigation. Several people exchanged anxious glances. One man lowered his phone for a moment, clearly hoping the situation would de-escalate. Monica met Bradley's eyes with the same composed expression she had carried from the beginning. Officer Turner, she said softly. Every public servant eventually faces a moment that defines the rest of his career. I sincerely hope today becomes a lesson rather than a regret. Bradley interpreted her words as another attempt to sound important. Without recognizing the quiet warning hidden inside them, he reached for the handcuffs on his duty belt while, only a few miles away, the lead vehicle of the Executive Protection Convoy exited the interstate and accelerated toward the gas station with disciplined precision, closing the remaining distance far faster than anyone at Pump 4 could imagine. Bradley Turner took a slow breath as he held the handcuffs in one hand, convinced that every decision he had made since arriving at the gas station had been justified. Around him, conversations had disappeared completely. Even the usual sounds of fuel pumps and passing traffic seemed distant beneath the weight of anticipation that settled over the parking lot. Monica Brooks looked at the handcuffs for only a brief moment before lifting her eyes back to his. There was no anger in her expression, no panic, and no attempt to run. Instead, there was a quiet sadness that puzzled several people watching from nearby. It was as though she understood that the next few minutes would affect far more than either of them. Officer, she said calmly, before you continue, I would respectfully ask that you verify my identity through your dispatcher. Bradley gave a dismissive shake of his head. That can wait. It would only take a minute, Monica replied. Sometimes 1 minute changes everything. Bradley ignored the suggestion. In his mind, delaying the process would only allow more excuses. He gestured for her to turn around. Monica complied without hesitation, moving slowly and carefully exactly as instructed. A young mechanic who had been filling tires at the service bay quietly lowered his air hose and whispered to the station manager. She has done everything he asked. The manager nodded uneasily. I know. Something about this does not feel right. Across the parking lot, the college student who had spoken earlier noticed a highway patrol database application on his own phone. Curious, he typed the visible government plate number into the publicly accessible vehicle verification page, used for state fleet information. Within seconds, a message appeared stating that the registration belonged to the office of the governor of Georgia. His eyes widened. He refreshed the page, believing he had entered the number incorrectly. The same result appeared again. He looked toward Monica, then toward Bradley, uncertain whether he should interrupt. Before he could decide, Bradley's portable radio crackled once more. Unit 12, dispatch requesting confirmation on the state vehicle registration inquiry. Additional information is available if needed. Bradley pressed the transmit button without hesitation. Negative. Situation is under control. I will advise when finished. The dispatcher paused for a brief second before acknowledging the response. The college student stared at the officer in disbelief. Officer, he called carefully, I think you may want to hear what dispatch has to say. Bradley turned sharply toward him. Sir, stay out of this. I said I have it under control. Monica remained silent. She could see uncertainty beginning to spread across the faces of the witnesses. They were no longer watching because they expected drama. They were watching because they sensed a mistake growing larger with every passing moment. An elderly woman quietly folded her hands and whispered, I hope everyone involved chooses wisdom before pride. Monica heard the words and offered a grateful smile. They reminded her of something her father had once told her when she was a little girl. Character is revealed when nobody is applauding. She carried those words through every courtroom, every campaign, and every difficult decision she had ever faced. She would carry them through this moment as well. Less than 2 miles away, the Executive Protection Convoy rounded the final curve leading toward the highway exit. Inside the lead vehicle, Commander Daniel Harper received another update from the Operations Center, confirming the exact location of Governor Monica Brooks. His expression remained professional, but his voice grew noticeably firmer as he addressed the convoy over the secure radio. Maintain formation. We are less than 3 minutes out. Every camera, every witness, and every decision from this point forward matters. Let us make sure the truth arrives before assumptions have the final word. The first hint that something had shifted arrived so quietly that almost no one noticed it. It was not the sound of sirens or flashing lights. It was the vibration of Bradley Turner's portable radio resting against his shoulder. The dispatcher spoke with an unusually measured tone. Unit 12 Communications has received a priority request to verify the registered assignment of the state vehicle at your location. Please confirm the license plate one more time. Bradley glanced toward the sport utility vehicle before reading the number aloud with complete confidence. There was a brief pause, longer than any previous transmission. Several people standing nearby instinctively looked toward the radio, sensing that silence sometimes carried more meaning than words. Unit 12, the dispatcher replied carefully. Please stand by. Do not clear the scene. Bradley frowned. Copy that. I already have the situation under control. The transmission ended without further explanation. He lowered the radio and looked back at Monica Brooks. She remained exactly where she had been standing from the beginning, her posture calm, her expression thoughtful. She noticed the slight change in his face but said nothing. She had spent enough years working with law enforcement leaders to recognize the difference between confidence and uncertainty. This was the first crack in the certainty that had guided every decision Bradley had made since entering the parking lot. The college student still held his phone in his hand. After checking the state fleet database for a third time, he slowly approached the retired Army veteran standing beside the pickup truck. Sir, he whispered, making sure Bradley could not hear, the registration really does belong to the governor's office. The veteran studied the screen for several seconds before quietly nodding. Then somebody is about to have a very difficult afternoon. Neither man raised their voice. Neither wanted to interfere with an active encounter. Yet the realization spread quietly through the small crowd. One person showed another the verification page. A woman standing near the ice freezer covered her mouth in disbelief. The station manager glanced from Monica to the government vehicle and back again, trying to understand how someone who carried herself with such humility could also be connected to the highest office in the state. Inside the convenience store, the cashier noticed customers had stopped shopping altogether. Every eye remained fixed on the windows facing Pump 4. Outside, Bradley continued believing the unanswered questions somehow strengthened his position. If everything is legitimate, he said firmly, there should not be any problem waiting a few more minutes. Monica nodded politely. I have never objected to waiting, officer. I have only encouraged verifying the facts before reaching conclusions. Her words landed differently this time. They no longer sounded like a defense. They sounded like advice. Advice that several witnesses silently wished had been accepted much earlier. Far down the frontage road, sunlight reflected off a line of dark sport utility vehicles moving with quiet precision. There were still no emergency lights and no sirens. They did not need them. Every driver inside the convoy already understood the urgency. Commander Daniel Harper reviewed the latest update on the secure tablet mounted beside him. The location matched perfectly. The governor's emergency signal remained active. He looked through the windshield toward the gas station appearing in the distance and spoke calmly over the encrypted radio. Remember why we are here. We protect the office, we respect the law, and we let the truth speak for itself. As the convoy closed the final mile, a faint ripple of movement appeared on the horizon, too distant for most people to recognize. Monica noticed it immediately. She did not smile. She did not celebrate. She simply took one slow breath, lifted her eyes toward the approaching vehicles, and quietly reminded herself that genuine justice did not arrive with anger. It arrived with patience, professionalism, and the courage to let the truth be seen by everyone. The distant line of dark sport utility vehicles grew larger with every passing second until the first driver easing into the gas station parking lot caught the attention of nearly everyone standing nearby. No emergency sirens pierced the afternoon air, yet something about the disciplined formation immediately changed the atmosphere. The vehicles moved with quiet precision, stopping in perfect alignment only a short distance from Pump 4. Every door opened almost at the same moment. Men and women dressed in professional business attire and executive protection uniforms stepped out with calm, deliberate movements. They did not rush. They did not create panic. Their confidence alone was enough to silence the entire parking lot. Bradley Turner watched them with growing confusion. At first he assumed they belonged to another agency responding to his request for assistance. He straightened his posture, expecting to brief the senior officer as he had done countless times before. Instead, the leader of the arriving team walked directly past him without asking a single question. Commander Daniel Harper removed his sunglasses as he approached Monica Brooks. His expression remained composed, yet unmistakably respectful. Stopping only a few feet away, he placed one hand over his heart in a formal gesture before speaking clearly enough for everyone nearby to hear. "Good afternoon, Governor Brooks. I apologize for the delay. Are you all right, ma'am?" A silence unlike anything the little gas station had ever experienced settled across the parking lot. The words seemed to freeze time itself. The college student slowly lowered his phone. The retired Army veteran instinctively stood a little straighter. The cashier inside the convenience store stared through the front window without blinking. Even the fuel pump seemed strangely quiet beneath the weight of what had just been revealed. Monica offered Commander Harper a small, reassuring smile. "Thank you, Commander. I am fine." Bradley felt the color drain from his face. His eyes moved from Monica to the commander, then to the state vehicle, and finally toward the executive protection detail standing respectfully behind her. His confident assumptions began collapsing one by one. "Governor?" he repeated quietly, almost unable to hear his own voice. Commander Harper finally turned toward Bradley. His tone remained professional and controlled. "Yes, officer. You are speaking with the elected governor of the state of Georgia. No anger. No accusation. Just a simple statement of fact." Monica reached into her jacket only after Harper gave a slight approving nod. She calmly removed her official identification wallet and opened it. The state seal reflected the afternoon sunlight while her photograph and title left no room for misunderstanding. Bradley stared at the credentials without speaking. The same identification Monica had offered to retrieve nearly 20 minutes earlier now rested plainly before him. Around the parking lot, quiet whispers spread through the crowd. Several people exchanged stunned looks as they realized they had witnessed every moment from the very beginning. The station manager slowly shook his head. "She tried to explain," he whispered. "She gave him every opportunity." Monica closed the identification wallet and looked at Bradley with calm sincerity rather than triumph. "Officer Turner," she said gently, "titles matter far less than treating every person with fairness before you know who they are." Those words landed more heavily than any public criticism ever could. Commander Harper received a brief update through his earpiece before addressing the executive protection team. "Secure the scene respectfully. Preserve every recording. We will allow the proper process to review every fact." Several witnesses quietly volunteered that they had recorded the encounter from different angles. Others nodded in agreement. The truth no longer depended on one person's memory. It had been seen by dozens of ordinary Americans who had simply stopped for fuel on an ordinary afternoon, never imagining they would witness a lesson about humility, professionalism, and the responsibility that comes with every badge. For several long seconds nobody moved. The afternoon seemed suspended between what everyone had believed only moments earlier, and the undeniable truth now standing before them. Officer Bradley Turner slowly lowered his eyes, his confident posture replaced by visible uncertainty as the reality of the situation settled over him. Commander Daniel Harper remained calm, refusing to let emotion dictate the next steps. He quietly signaled two members of the executive protection team, who respectfully documented the scene without disrupting the witnesses gathered around the pumps. "Governor," Harper said, "our operations center has already notified the Department of Public Safety. They have requested that every available recording from this encounter be preserved." Monica Brooks nodded. "That is exactly what should happen. Facts deserve to be reviewed without assumptions." The words echoed across the parking lot. Several witnesses immediately stepped forward. The college student offered the video he had recorded from the beginning of the encounter. The retired Army veteran explained that his dashboard camera had captured nearly everything from another angle. The station manager informed Commander Harper that the security cameras covering every fuel pump continuously recorded throughout the day and automatically stored the footage on secure servers. Nothing needed to be reconstructed from memory because the truth had quietly documented itself. Bradley listened without speaking. For the first time that afternoon, he appeared to recognize how many opportunities had existed to slow down, verify information, and listen before reaching conclusions. A senior supervisor from the Georgia Department of Public Safety arrived only minutes later in an unmarked vehicle. After greeting Governor Brooks respectfully, he turned toward Bradley with a measured expression. "Officer Turner," he said professionally, "effective immediately, this incident will be reviewed through the appropriate administrative process. Until that review is complete, I am instructing you to surrender your body camera and complete the required documentation." There was no shouting, no public humiliation, only the steady application of established procedures designed to protect both accountability and fairness. Bradley quietly acknowledged the instruction and carefully removed the body camera from his uniform before handing it to the supervisor. Several people watching expected Governor Brooks to criticize him publicly. Instead, she remained silent until every official step had been completed. Only then did she walk a few feet closer, maintaining the same calm dignity she had shown since the first moment they met. "Officer Turner," she said softly, "today is not important because of my position. It is important because countless people you meet every year will never have executive protection arriving behind them. They deserve the same patience you would give someone wearing a title." Bradley slowly lifted his eyes. He did not attempt to interrupt. He simply listened. Monica continued, "Public trust is built one conversation at a time. Every encounter is an opportunity either to strengthen that trust or weaken it. I sincerely hope this experience becomes a turning point, rather than a permanent definition of who you are." Those standing nearby noticed something remarkable. There was no celebration in her voice, no satisfaction, only a sincere desire that a difficult lesson might still produce something meaningful. Commander Harper quietly thanked every witness for remaining respectful throughout the incident, and assured them that anyone wishing to provide statements could do so through the formal review process. One by one, people nodded in agreement. The tension that had gripped the gas station all afternoon slowly faded, replaced by thoughtful silence. As Governor Brooks prepared to continue the journey she had started that morning, the lesson left behind reached far beyond one officer, one parking lot, or one unexpected encounter. It reminded everyone watching that the strongest form of authority is never demonstrated by assuming the worst about another person, but by having the discipline to seek the truth before passing judgment. As the last of the official reports were completed and the afternoon traffic gradually returned to its normal rhythm, the little gas station looked almost ordinary again. Families resumed their road trips, truck drivers climbed back into their cabs, and the sound of fuel pumps blended once more with the steady flow of vehicles passing along the highway. Yet everyone who had witnessed the events of that day carried away something far more lasting than a simple memory. Governor Monica Brooks thanked Commander Daniel Harper and every member of the executive protection team before turning toward the small group of bystanders who had remained until the very end. "Thank you," she said with genuine warmth, "not because you recorded what happened, but because you remained respectful while the truth found its place. Communities become stronger when ordinary people choose fairness over assumptions." The college student smiled quietly, realizing that the short video he had almost decided not to record had become an important piece of an honest public record. The retired Army veteran shook the governor's hand and said, "Ma'am, I served this country for many years. Today reminded me that character still matters." Monica nodded with sincere appreciation. "It always will." Before returning to her vehicle, she looked one final time toward Officer Bradley Turner, who remained standing nearby in thoughtful silence. There was no anger between them now, only the unmistakable weight of reflection. "Officer Turner," she said calmly, "every public servant receives two uniforms. One is issued by an employer. The other is earned through the trust of the people. The first can be given in a single day. The second takes years to build and only moments to lose." Bradley lowered his eyes before quietly answering, "Governor, I understand that now." They were simple words, but everyone nearby sensed they were spoken with sincerity rather than obligation. Commander Harper then escorted Governor Brooks toward the state vehicle, but before opening the door, she paused once more. Looking across the parking lot, she noticed parents holding the hands of their children, neighbors speaking with strangers who had become friends for an afternoon, and people from different backgrounds sharing a quiet understanding that respect should never depend on appearance, status, or assumptions. She smiled softly because that had been the purpose of her unannounced visits all along. She wanted to see the state exactly as its citizens experienced it, not through carefully prepared schedules or formal ceremonies, but through everyday moments that revealed the true character of a community. As the executive protection convoy departed, the setting sun stretched long shadows across the pavement where the encounter had unfolded only a short time earlier. The gas station soon disappeared in the distance, but its lesson continued traveling much farther than any highway could reach. Weeks later, the administrative review concluded according to established procedures, using witness statements, security footage, and body camera recordings to evaluate every decision made that afternoon. More importantly, the incident inspired renewed conversations throughout the state about professionalism, fairness, and the responsibility carried by every public servant. Training programs were strengthened, community listening sessions expanded, and countless officers continued serving with the quiet reminder that every person deserves to be treated with dignity before their identity is ever known. Because in the end, the most powerful badge is not the one worn on a uniform. It is the invisible one earned through integrity, humility, and respect. And on that ordinary afternoon beside a lonely highway, the greatest victory did not belong to power, position, or authority. It belonged to the simple truth that justice begins the moment we choose to see the humanity in the person standing before us.